Hi, I'm Annie Botticelli, and welcome to my June 2019 horoscope report for you. My intention for this video is to equip you with the information that you need regarding the astrological transits to have the best month possible. I will give you information about things that are occurring in June that will affect your sign and the general transits that will affect you, at the same time as understanding cycles that are at play for a much longer period of time to put everything into context to let you know what you're working with this month. Definitely go to my website, anniehelpsyou.com, where you can check out my extensive astrology blog, including new moon and full moon blogs, to assist you with using those power days of the month each month. Also, if you'd love to sign up for my astrology apprenticeship program, if you resonate with how I teach and you want to learn, you can definitely check that out at anniehelpsyou.com, as well as book a live reading. If you are looking to transform your life, check out my book, Radical Prayer, Transform Your Life and the World in 28 Days. It's a wonderful little affirmation prayer book that is super powerful and positive to help uplift you. So you can check that out on Amazon or at radicalprayerbook.com. So what's going on for you this month? I'm going to go into the details for your sign. I'm going to also pop in at some point the astrology charts that I'm looking at, so I can show you for the early, middle, and late degree placements, depending on where you are in the sign, how there could be some differences and what things are the same for every member of the sign. And also we'll talk about the general transits that will absolutely be affecting you and how you can best use those energies. So let's see what's going on for your sign now. Hi Scorpio friends, welcome to my June 2019 horoscope report for you. I'm calling the theme of the month for Scorpios surprise dramatic endings and blissful new beginnings. We've had a lot of changes coming for Scorpio for different reasons. And this time, this change is coming compliments of the eclipses. So we are partway through a Cancer Capricorn eclipse cycle. And whenever we get into the hotspot time of the eclipses, which are actually in July, but we often feel those 4, 6, even sometimes 8 weeks before. But June is a ripe time for lots of changes coming from those July eclipses. So we're going to talk about that at length so that you know what's coming and so that you can use the energy in the best way. In general, there's a lot of Cancer energy this month, and that beautifully blesses Scorpio placements with this 120-degree angle, which is the most favorable in all of astrology. So you'll be getting kisses as all of those personal planets move through Cancer and send beautiful angles to your Scorpio placements. And when I drop the charts in later, I'll show you what this looks like from the visual perspective. There's also some energy equally as much energy moving through Gemini, and that angle is a little bit more awkward for Scorpios. So this is more of like a clash of the mental way, like thoughts and feelings, because Scorpio energy feels its way through life. And unless you have other placements that shift this for you, that pure Scorpio energy is a feeling energy, and these Gemini energies, they're mental, they're thinking energies. So there's a conflict there from the angle that they connect with, and it causes, a conflict between thoughts and feelings. So that is happening at the same time as those beautiful blessings from the Cancer placements. And the eclipses are going to be bringing these powerful endings, these surprise endings and dramatic endings, and these blissful new beginnings. So I am going to go into a lot of detail about where you can see this in the chart, but I'm going to give you a quick summary about some areas of life that will likely be affected or that could be affected, and then I'll drill down into early, middle, and late degree placements after we do a quick eclipse tutorial. So in general, there's likely going to be changes or surprises in the area of finance. Some of you can experience it in the energy of health or the direction that you're moving in, like your physical body as it relates to your image and what you call yourself. So money surprises, changes in direction as far as what you're doing and how you're presenting yourself to the world, changes in your relationship space, including arrangements with resources like money, financial arrangements, debt, credit, things like that. And also some surprise adventure. A lot of you are going to be in store for some really wonderful adventures, and if they don't take place in June, then they can definitely take place as a byproduct of this eclipse cycle. So you might be, preparing for them in June. They could happen in July and August, but this expansion of horizons in some major way, and a lot of that can come through travel, specifically. This can also come through education and through teaching. So if you have an opportunity to teach or you have an opportunity to learn, that might be how this surprise eclipse energy comes in. And when I say surprise, it could mean like you weren't even thinking about those whatever it is that comes in, and all of a sudden it's like, oh wow, okay, well that'll work, right? Or it could be surprise, like you've thought about it before, you've considered it, but then all of a sudden it's right in front of you. So there's always an energy of surprises with eclipses, even if you can kind of see how they're going because you've been following the continuum. There are a lot of times where even if you know it's coming, it comes and it still feels like a surprise. But there are those things that will come out of left field where you're like, wow, I just definitely didn't see that coming. So it's a time to be flexible. It's a time to be grounded, and it's a time to push forward things intuitively, but to not force things, because the things that you might be, the trajectory you might be moving along can be rapidly changed by the information, the news, the events that come in from the eclipses. So I want to give you a quick eclipse tutorial and explain about the years that this Capricorn Cancer cycle happened before, so you can think back to those times and see, are there patterns that are coming up in your life as themes now, so you can understand that better. And then also talk about some other things general to eclipses. And then I'll drop the charts in and I'll show you in depth where the early, middle, and late degree placements will be having these eclipses, which houses and what that can mean. And then we'll talk about the general transits. So I want to give you a little eclipse tutorial, and that will help you to better use the energy that we're going to talk about specifically for your sign as to where the eclipses are hitting. But general understandings of what you do with eclipse energy, how it manifests. I also want to talk about this particular eclipse cycle, the Cancer Capricorn eclipse cycle, and give you a framework for when it's happened before and what kind of things you can expect based on what happened at those times, okay? So, solar eclipses tend to bring in new energy, new opportunities, new directions. There's a solar eclipse on July 2nd, and that's going to be at 10 degrees of Cancer. We'll go into the details about where that's looking for house placement soon, but just in general, it's in the energy of Cancer. Okay, so new beginnings in that energy. The lunar eclipse is happening on July 16th at 24 degrees of Capricorn. Okay, so lunar eclipses tend to bring something to a culmination, like it's been building, and well, now it's arrived, or it can end something, remove something, eclipse something out. So the eclipse energies at the times that the eclipses are strongest, well, because we're in an eclipse cycle for a couple of years at a time. So for instance, from this eclipse cycle, Cancer Capricorn started mid-2018 and runs through mid-2020. So anytime from mid-2018 to mid-2020, anything can happen that's eclipse related. You can have eclipse news nowhere near an eclipse time because there's a storyline that's at play and it's acting in your life. Okay, so you'll see it's a theme that takes place over that time. But when it's eclipse time, the month of the eclipses and the 4 to 6 weeks before and after, so over a course of several months at a time, it's more likely that something will bring this eclipse storyline that's kind of running in the backdrop out into the front in a big dramatic way, in a big notable way, with things that were pending or discussed coming to fruition or coming up to be dealt with. Okay, so now we have that time. So July is the eclipse time, but we can start really getting like heated up hot eclipse energies middle May. And that can also run through, mid-September is like this major eclipse season. So as we're getting closer to July, news is more likely to come in and things will come to a head. Okay, so that's the first thing to know. The second thing to know is that think back to like 2009 to 2011 and think back to 2000 and 2001, because those were the last times that we had the Cancer Capricorn eclipse cycle. So you can think about the themes that have been going on since mid-2018. Think about what happened 2009, 2011. Think about what happened in 2000, 2001. And those are the kind of themes that are likely to come up again. Now, I know I'm going to get this question, so I'm just going to address this here. Yes, we did have the credit, housing, financial debacle of the century in that time frame of 2008, 2009, 2010, like around there, there was quite a lot of strife in a lot of sectors, and many people had dramatic losses of house, home, work, things like that. So is it possible that those energies are going to come back in again? Yes, absolutely. Is it going to manifest that same exact way? Probably not, because there were other factors going on in the world that contributed to what that looked like. And there were different factors at play that created that bubble that then popped, than are at play now. But definitely storylines similar to that. If you think back and you were moving house or having things involving housing or moving or home or work or expanding work or family and like all of that, those kind of things are going to definitely be current. And the other themes that occurred that aren't related to those areas of life are very likely going to come back into the forefront. And those are going to be dependent on the sign, which we're going to go into more details about. But I just wanted to give you this storyline, like, okay, this principle of energy not ever disappearing or being made new, that there's this finite amount of energy, but it's changed around. It just changes form. It's very evident at eclipse time because something is removed and something is put in. And sometimes you get the new thing put in before the other thing's removed. Sometimes they happen at the same time. Sometimes there's, staggering where you like have the thing taken, there's this gaping hole and you're like, where's the thing to fill the energy? It hasn't come in yet. It takes a little time. The way I commonly see this as like a really good eclipse example is like a child is about to be born and then a grandparent passes away, So like in that same amount of time, this representative of family energy dissolves into another form, takes the form of a kid, and it's like, okay, so now this energy is present in that form. So that specific example will happen in a lot of cases, but there's so much more to it than that. So, just be on the lookout for the things that want to fall away, and the degree to which we can let those things transition away are going to affect how we can embrace the new things. One thing that I do recommend that you look into is a homeopathic remedy called gelsemium, Gelsemium. Okay, I'm not a doctor. You don't have to have a license to work with these. You can find it on Amazon or at a health food store. Gelsemium is a homeopathic remedy that is traditionally used for stage fright, but it's also used from if you're looking at the energies of the components, it's more having to do with showing up for the things that are expected from you and showing up for the things that are unavoidable. So even like midwives will give this remedy at childbirth when the woman is showing up for like the big show, So just think about the gelsemium and look into that because it could help those things that are happening just to kind of release the fear around stepping into your new life that wants to show up. Okay, so let's look at where in the chart these changes are likely to occur. Okay, so to best use the information that I'm about to share as we go into the deeper details here, it will be necessary for you to know if you are an early degree Scorpio, which is pretty much October born, or 0 to 9 degrees, middle degree Scorpio, November 1st through on the 10th, or 10 to 19 degrees, or late degree Scorpio, November 11th through the rest of the sign, or 20 to 29 degrees. And yes, if you're asking, is this for you if it's Scorpio is your rising sign or moon sign, then the answer is yes. Because the moon, the sun, and the rising sign view are all different windows out of the house of your experience that all have relevance at the same time. Okay, so now you have a good background about the eclipses. Now we're going to drill down and see where they're occurring. That solar eclipse at 10 degrees of Cancer is happening for early degree placements in the 9th house. The lunar eclipse at 24 degrees of Capricorn is happening for early degree placements in the 3rd house. So the early have a 3rd, 9th polarity, and of course I will go into details about what this means and what it can look like, but first we have to establish what we're looking at. For the middle degree placements, this is going to be a little bit fuzzy because you are on the line there. Okay, so in general, as this eclipse cycle between 2018 and 2020, you early degree placements, the 9th and 3rd is your primary storyline. But you do have a secondary storyline in the 2nd and 8th. Okay, so now when we move over to look at the middle degree placements, you are split in the middle, where you have a dual theme between 2018 and 2020 of the 8th and 2nd and the 3rd and 9th. So this actual eclipse is at 10 degrees. So depending on your middle degree placements, that's either going to be in the 8th or 9th house. But for all of you, it's going to be close enough to either of them that it can manifest. You know, we have to remember when something's on the line like that, this line between these things is not like this, you know, the wall in Westeros. It's like it's like a line in the sand. So it's a big deal to, if you don't read them in both places, then you're missing pieces. So this whole, between 2018 and 2020, you middle degree Scorpio people, you're having 9th and 3rd themes and 2nd and 8th themes equally. So in the middle, so you've got 3rd and 9th, 2nd and 8th, you know, as kind of equal. And then the late degree placements, you can see how the charts shift here. Oh, okay, we didn't see, you can see with this 24 degrees. So for you all, that middle degree placement, the lunar eclipse is in the 3rd house. Okay. But then we look at the late degree placements, and you can see that the 10 degrees of Cancer is very clearly in the 8th house for you all. And depending on your late degree placement, you're either going to have a 2nd house lunar eclipse or some influence in the 3rd. So that's why you can see what I'm saying. It's like these houses are being accentuated, 4 houses for all of you, but to a different degree. So the late degree placements, you have the 2nd and 8th as your primary theme between 2018 and 2020. And then you have the 3rd and 9th as a secondary theme. But manifestations for any of these areas of life can happen at any time during this continuum, but are increased in likelihood during the eclipse season. So we'll just use the middle degree chart to talk about the energies of these different houses, and note that everything I'm going to talk about could be relevant for all Scorpios, just to the degree, you know, with the primary or sub-theme as we talked about before. When you have the 9th and 3rd house accentuated, the surprises and jolts and dramatic endings and beginnings are happening from the perspective of these houses. So the 9th house can bring in, this is a solar eclipse here, surprise travel, surprise teaching or learning opportunities, openings for you to do your spiritual work in a bigger way, whether that's officially with a church or you know, a non-denominational situation. International business, so anything international, traveling, different languages, learning language, teaching languages, international business connections of any kind, as you could be talking to people internationally while you are home. Anything international is this story. Writing, publishing, speaking, teaching, learning, new opportunities there. So you might find the perfect education opportunity for you. The solar eclipse could bring that in. You know, a school program or something, or a chance to do any of those other things. The 3rd house, where a lot of this energy is releasing, has to do with more local mobility. Okay, when the eclipses are highlighting this space, it usually brings the idea of mobility into the forefront. So either you're super busy, you know, traveling around, driving, walking, doing whatever, or there's an interference with mobility, or your mobility is getting called into question, issues with vehicles, issues with, you know, your physical mobility in any way. A lot of times when there's a lunar eclipse in the 3rd house, there's something that goes on with your car. Either something happens to it, there's, you know, a problem with it, or you change cars, or you release your car, or something involving a vehicle. But there's some kind of eclipse where something's getting eclipsed out as far as local mobility. But what we can look at here is this theme of, you know, whenever there are eclipses happening, energy closes in one area, but it opens in another area. And that's, you know, that principle of energy, that energy is never created nor destroyed, it simply changes form. It's very evident at the time of the eclipses because it leaves somewhere and it goes somewhere else. Excuse me. So maybe your local mobility, which is 3rd house more, your local mobility is interfered with, but your global mobility is opened up. So some people might say, hey, I'm going to forego having a car so that I can travel internationally. And that's like a typical symbolic energy of this polarity. Now, it could turn out to be the other way around. Someone could settle down from international travel and get a car and be more local, you know, but in general, the energy is moving from here towards there. Changes in communication. Also, it's important to note, and I have to talk about this every time there's an eclipse in the third house, because I've seen it happen so many times. Since this can increase the odds of accidents or trouble with cars, be extra careful when you're driving, because it's just an important thing to do. I've seen things happen to cars and happen with accidents, as you know, more of a likelihood with that. Now, it's something to be afraid of. It is something to be aware of. If you're a texter and driver, this would be a good time to stop doing that, or anything that distracts you while driving is just more important for you to stay focused. And that includes when you're on your bike or walking. I have had people tell me that when I've talked about this, it actually has saved their lives, because my words came into their head at that exact moment that they were texting as walking, and they stopped right before a street and almost got hit by a car. So you really, really have to be careful of that. Things could happen with your devices, your like phone devices. So you might need a new phone or need a new car. And if you are going to need one of those things, I love the first 3 weeks in June, before you get into the Mercury retrograde time if possible, and especially the first few days of June to buy those big ticket items. Also, there's a theme in moving from mundane experience to the exalted and ideal experience. So like writing in the backdrop to teaching in the forefront, you know, editing to bringing it out into the world. There's kind of this theme of like the smaller and out to the bigger. All right, so a lot of that is going on with Scorpio. The other themes that are coming up have to do with, talked about the 2nd and 8th houses. The 2nd house has to do with your self-sufficiency, your stuff, and the 8th house has to do with our stuff. So, you know, your money, your self-sufficiency, your material belongings are here, and then your shared things, family things, spousal things, company things, government things, loans, credits, institutions, collaborations are all here. So you're moving from your own things to your joint things. So there could be an eclipsing out of your own financial picture and favoring moving into closer, communion with other people. And this could involve, you know, people that you hire to help you, or people that you're in just equal collaboration with, or things like that. But there's a huge, shift. So money changes are very likely for better or worse, and money surprises are very likely for better or worse. So if you see something slipping away, like an income or a job, try to not panic and just say, okay, well, where is it opening up to? How can I use this 8th house to leverage this energy where your own individual resources and gifts are merged in with other people? That's a huge theme. So if you're looking to buy a house or, get capital funding or anything like that, your 8th house is a massive amount of support for you right now. And that can fill in the blanks that might open up here, or it can give you opportunities to expand your 2nd house storyline. Okay, so these are the things that were most on my mind for Scorpio. Oh, actually, I wanted to just show you, I said I would do this. The Cancer making 120 degree angle. And then these Gemini placements are making 150 degree angle. And those are awkward. Okay, so as this thinking energy moves through and bumps off of your Scorpio energy, it's like thought versus feeling. And it's, conflictive, annoying, and antagonistic. But then at the same time, you have every planet that's moving through Cancer is going to kiss your Scorpio placement. So this is going to happen. This has been happening. It's going to continue happening now and into July. So you see Mars is there kissing Scorpio. Mercury is going to be there soon. The Sun will be there at the end of the month, or 2/3 through. Venus is going to get there. So pretty much all the personal planets are making or about to make these beautiful angles with your placements. And that can really help things to flow for you and give you a space of more emotional security. But that's after rattling through like the busyness and the changes and the conflicts that come from the Gemini placements. Okay, so now those are the things I wanted to talk about. Now I want to give you more information about the general transits and explain the Mercury retrograde cycle, how it's going to relate and what times of the month are clear from it, and when you can expect that there are going to be changes to plans and what you can do about that, plus some dates to note. So let's go into all that now. I'm calling the theme of the month for all signs for June 2019, dramatic eclipse news and changes. Twice a year we have eclipses, and at that time, radical changes, massive trajectory shifts, major endings, brilliant new beginnings are all more prominent as an experience for us. We are moving along an eclipse cycle of the Cancer Capricorn cycle. So I'm going to go into a lot more details about how that can affect you from the general standpoint. Of course, I've already gone into extensive detail for your sign. In general, this month is full of opportunities to continue moving projects along. The open window that we have that's free and clear from personal planet retrogrades extends until around June 20th. So starting around then, Mercury retrograde pre-shadow period will start making its way deeper and deeper and deeper until the actual retrograde at the beginning of July, and Mercury will be retrograde all of July. So in July we have 2 eclipses and Mercury retrograde, but in June we are feeling the effects of Mercury about to go retrograde and the eclipses that haven't happened yet. So every once in a while I'll have somebody say, "Why are you talking about this now? That sounds like it should be for July." But as I've just explained to you, the manifestations of astrological transits are not as black and white as they may be presented out of simplicity. But I like to go into the yummy details because these are the things that really, really, really start to help you build your astrological understanding and to use these energies in the best way. Okay, so Mercury retrograde is a time when lots of changes come. Plans that we made often change, shift, or are called into question. Sometimes they actually work out, but there's usually this heavy energy of being called into question. So June may be a time for planning and pulling things through, especially the first 3 weeks. But there's also going to be this tone towards the end of the month, especially that things that seem like they were set may start to, you're just not sure if they're going to happen. So there's that energy. Plus, coupled with that, eclipses bring big news. So you could be planning on doing this, and then all of a sudden eclipse news comes in and guess what? You're not doing that. That's totally changed. So I always recommend to leave things as flexible as possible and just to be open to the changes that may come. And when you're making agreements and arrangements, just make them knowing that there's a chance they're going to change, because that will help you to have the appropriate relationship with what it is you're working with. In general, this month, these planets in Gemini, lots of energy in Gemini, is bringing crazy busyness and dizzying, just kind of options swirling around. Some things will be manifesting as like options gelling, like, okay, there's this and this and this actually happening. But other things will be like, do I do this? Do I do this? Do I do this? Do I do this? Is like a typical Gemini energy. At the same time, Cancer energies are going to be just as strong this month as the Gemini energies and have equal weight. And those are more emotional, nostalgic. So definitely expect high emotion both from the Cancer energies and the eclipses. Nostalgia, home and family and housing topics get brought right into the forefront. And this is for every sign because the energy of Cancer is prominent for every sign. These 2 July eclipses that are bringing in these changes, we discussed them quite a lot for your individual sign, but I want to talk about some of the general transit energies. So that has to do with the Cancer Capricorn cycle that started mid-2018 and will go into mid-2020. And so everyone can expect major changes in the areas of home and work, male and female energies, mother and father energies, mother and father responsibilities and roles, our inner world versus our outer world, our emotional space versus our outer space, our childhood versus our adult picture. Those are themes that are going to be brought up into focus for all signs, regardless of what house it's falling into for your specific sign. This general theme, or these general themes, are things that you can expect for the whole time. So as we discussed, there's a quite extended timeline for these eclipses. So between May and even August into September is eclipse season. So radical changes occurring during that time, or during that whole time. So there's an equal amount of positive aspects and challenging aspects this month. And because of that, it's really your attitude, perspective, and inner work that can change, like can tip the scales as to how you experience this month. Okay, so with all things being equal, like, oh, dicey, oh, great. If you're riding the line, how you're seeing things and how you use the things that come in are going to really change how you experience this month. So you have a lot of power in your hands, but it is going to take some work on your part to try to frame the things that are occurring to stay on the positive side. Because if you slip into the victim mode and feel like life is happening to you, it's going to be a lot more difficult to get the gold from this month. I'm going to hit a couple of highlights about some specific dates to note. And if you would like a more detailed written explanation of the dates that have notable transits and what the transits are and what you can expect with that, definitely sign up for my free email newsletter at anniehelpsyou.com. When you sign up for my free email newsletter, you get this general transit overview a month early, written in your inbox so that you can use it for planning purposes and see what days are more stressful and what days are, lighter. I used to go into like a lot of detail about all of these, but I've had many requests to try to shorten my videos, which are already super long and detailed. So in order to reach that objective, definitely sign up for my free email newsletter. I don't send out a ton of email newsletters because I don't like how that feels to get it. So when you sign up for my newsletter, know that you will be treasured and honored and respected. So I'm going to go into, let's see, a few here. June 2nd, like really actually the first several days of the month are my favorite days of the month to do anything important. It might just have it that you have to do these important things on other days, and that's totally fine. But if you can plan something, if there's something that you're planning, something that you have, an intention to do ahead of time, this early part of the month, like the first 3 or 4 days or so, is more sweet and uninterrupted by the intermittent challenging aspects than any other time in the month. Because the rest of the month, it's like sweet, dicey, sweet, dicey, sweet, dicey, right on top of each other, often on the same day. But this little cluster right at the beginning, you're in this free time, free from personal planet retrogrades. You are in this time where the aspects are sweet. You've got the new moon on June 3rd in Gemini. This is a month where a lot of travel opportunities are going to abound because Gemini energy is prominent. New moon in Gemini and full moon in Sagittarius are all things that tend to bring travel and opportunities for expansion and moving around. Okay, so try to do your important things in the beginning of the month if you can help it. Otherwise, I always say intuitively align your actions with the energy that you're experiencing. Because what happens, again, it's like people want to have a black and white answer and say, is this a good day or a bad day? The answer is, we don't know, okay? Because it depends on how you experience it. A lot of these aspects you can feel, even though they're happening on one day, you can feel them up to 5 or a week or longer before they happen. So they're mixing energies, just like mixing flavors in a meal. And they fade in and fade out. So you have to tune in, and if you have to do something, you kind of feel that internal sense of timing and that divine synchronicity lining up in front of you and say, okay, and now, it's just like catching a wave. If you've ever been surfing, it's like you have to wait for that exact second. And if you hit it just right, then you coast and have an amazing ride. But that's what we're trying to do. So no astrologer and no horoscope in the world is going to be able to give you all of the answers that you need. You need to tune in, given the information that you're given, and find your own way according to how energy is moving through you. Because there could be a transit on a day that's amazing, and in your personal chart, which we can't see from the general chart perspective, you could be having a challenging lineup. So, you just have to follow your flow. Okay, so beginning of the month, awesome. New moon on June 3rd, time to make your new moon wishes. And I have a blog about the new moons and the full moons on my website to help you best use those days. So if you want to see how you can best use your new moon and Gemini wishes, you can do a search for new moon and Gemini Annie. I think if you even just do that on any search, it will come up. That blog will come up. Okay, so we have a lot of stressful aspects this month, oppositions and squares, which are putting pressure on a situation. Okay, so for some people, this could be crunch time to make something happen. For some people, this could be an interference with plans that were made or an interference with certainty that you had. Also, it could be overstimulation and overdoing and overcommitting. So just be really careful there. There are going to be a lot of forces that are are working against, encouraging you to overdo at the same time as working against you if you actually do that. Okay, in the middle of the month, this Jupiter square Neptune, that we had this happen in January, we're going to have this happen again in September. In general, this is a time where the odds are more in favor of a disappointment now than a triumph. If you're not, again, listening to this, the best way to describe it is it's your inner limits, finding and setting your inner limits, because Jupiter's expansive energy just wants to go, whoo, expand, 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 expand. And then Neptune throws questions into that, throws, a lack of clarity, throws confusion. So it's like you feel this expansion wanting to come, but you either don't know how to use it, how to do it, or in which way to go, what direction. So definitely try to follow the flow and settle into the new norm of what you've already expanded, rather than trying to continue too much expansion, if possible. This full moon in Sagittarius at almost 26 degrees on June 17th will bring fullness, completion, fruition to all things Sagittarius. So anything involving teaching, learning, international travel or business, different countries, different cultures, different languages, spiritual pursuits, anything involving the church, if you're, whether it's a specific church or just spirituality in general. And a lot of trips or information about trips or gelling of trips could come at this time, or education opportunities. Okay, look out for that whole thing of the overdoing, like I talked about, especially around June 23rd. This could be like where too much of a good thing occurs. When there's an opposition with Venus and Jupiter, or with anything in Jupiter, Jupiter tends to be more benevolent in its opposition form. So this is something that could be just like too much of a good thing. So, overdoing, try to guard your immune system. And if you're watching your money, then be extra careful right now, because your drive to splurge will definitely be more. So if you're on a budget, be careful of the elated energies that could occur at this time, because you could go on a spending frenzy and it could take you off track. Okay, so in general, those are the things that I most wanted to talk about. There are lots more details, as I discussed, but in order to try to keep this brief and focused, I've just hit some of the highlights. So definitely go to AnnieHelpsYou.com. If you'd like to book a live reading, you can do that there. You can also book a reading with my apprentice, Marilee. And Marilee is amazing. So you can see more about how to connect with her on my readings page at AnnieHelpsYou.com. You can check out my extensive blog. If you'd love to have written horoscopes from me, you can go to cozybysweetstarlight.com. And I do written horoscopes a month ahead, sometimes talking about different things than we talk about in the video. So you get a more extensive view and a written version there, plus lifestyle blogs. And definitely check out my book, Radical Prayer, Transform Your Life in the World in 28 Days. You can see that on Amazon, and you can buy that internationally. It's also can be available and ordered either, if they're not already, at booksellers across the world, or you can see it at radicalprayerbook.com. So I hope you have a wonderful month. I hope the eclipses bring you good news and lots of chances for wonderful transformation, and I'll see you next month. Bye.